The Resistance base was in complete chaos. On the holographic monitors, Palpatine's distorted and ghostly image floated like an apparition coming directly from the galaxy's nightmares. He had returned, not as a living being, but as a specter linked to a sinister technological apparatus that kept him trapped between life and death. His voice echoed through the communications, spreading fear and destruction across all systems. General Leia Organa observed all of this with the weight of decades of war on her shoulders. She knew that facing this ghost from the past would require more than just courage or conventional military strategy. In the underground laboratories of the base, the Resistance scientists worked tirelessly, analyzing every fragment of information about Sith, about the Force, about ancient and forgotten technologies. They studied recovered holocrons, surviving Jedi texts, even Imperial records captured over the years. It was during one of these endless sessions that a young Twi'lek scientist made an extraordinary discovery. He realized that subatomic particles behaved in a peculiar way during warp speed travel, creating small distortions in the fabric of spacetime. The theory was bold, almost impossible, but the Resistance no longer had the luxury of dismissing possibilities no matter how absurd they seemed. The calculations began immediately, occupying all available computers at the base. Weeks turned into months while the scientific team worked on the theory. Leia visited the laboratory daily, observing the progress with a mixture of hope and skepticism. She had seen many promises of victory crumble throughout her life. Finally, after countless attempts and adjustments, they managed to make one of the scientists disappear for exactly 3 seconds, returning to the same spatial point but 5 minutes in the past. The man was dazed, but alive and whole. The room exploded in contained celebrations, but Leia knew that 3 seconds would not be enough to change the fate of an entire galaxy. The scientists continued refining the process, gradually increasing the temporal range. From minutes to hours, from hours to days, and finally, after more weeks of exhausting work, they managed to send a protocol droid 5 years into the past. The droid returned intact, with its memories preserved and functioning perfectly. The team was ecstatic, but also exhausted. Leia observed everything with growing conviction that this technology was not just a scientific curiosity, but a true weapon capable of changing history. She began to consider possibilities that before seemed completely out of reach. That night, Leia walked to the small clearing where Luke used to meditate when he visited the base. Her brother was sitting on a rock, eyes closed, connected to the Force in a way she was still learning to fully understand. When she approached, Luke opened his eyes and smiled gently, as if he already knew exactly what she was thinking. Leia sat beside him and began to talk about the scientist's discovery, about the possibilities it represented. Luke listened in silence, his serene face reflecting the light of the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "If we could go back before all this happened," Leia said in a low voice, looking at the distant horizon. "Before Palpatine destroyed the Republic, before he created the Empire, before the Jedi Order was eliminated. If the Order had survived, if they had known the truth about the Chancellor from the beginning, everything would be completely different. Our parents would still be alive, billions of lives would have been spared, the galaxy wouldn't have plunged into decades of darkness." Luke turned to her, his blue eyes shining with deep understanding. He gently touched his sister's shoulder and nodded, knowing exactly what she was proposing. They talked for hours under the stars, weighing every aspect of the decision they were about to make. In the end, both agreed that the risk was worth it if there was even a chance to save so many lives. Preparations began immediately the next morning. The scientific team worked day and night to adapt the technology, expanding the temporal displacement capacity from years to decades. Leia underwent intensive training, reviewing everything she knew about that era through the saved historical records. She studied maps of the ancient Jedi temple in Coruscant, memorized faces of the council members, rehearsed every word she would say. Luke helped her strengthen her connection with the Force, teaching her meditation and control techniques that would be essential. On the eve of the journey, the siblings embraced for a long time, not knowing if they would see each other again, and Leia entered the temporal displacement chamber with absolute determination etched in every line of her face. The world reassembled around Leia like pieces of a complex puzzle being quickly put together. She was in a wide, empty corridor, with extremely tall columns rising toward the distant ceiling. The architecture was unmistakable, majestic, and imposing in a way she had only seen in ancient holograms. This was the Jedi Temple of Coruscant, exactly as it existed before being desecrated and transformed into the Imperial Palace. Leia looked down and saw her own hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the absolute magnitude of what she was about to do. She had actually traveled decades into the past, was stepping in a place that only existed in her memories through stories told by Luke. Two Jedi Knights turned the corner of the corridor and stopped abruptly upon seeing her. Leia raised her hands in a peaceful gesture and said with a firm voice, "I am a Jedi and request an urgent audience with the Council. What I have to say can change the destiny of the entire galaxy." There was something in her presence, an inner strength and natural authority that made the two knights exchange uncertain looks. They could feel the Force in her, although in a different way from traditional Jedi. After a moment of hesitation, the man nodded and asked her to accompany them. The walk through the temple was at once fascinating and painful for Leia. She saw Padawans running through the corridors, masters talking in low voices, sentinels mounting guard in strategic positions. Everything was alive, functioning, existing in a way that would be destroyed in a matter of days if she failed in her mission. The walls echoed with the constant murmur of thousands of beings connected to the Force, creating a symphony of energy she had never experienced before. It was at once comforting and deeply sad, knowing what was to come if she couldn't convince the Council. Finally, they arrived before the great doors of the Council chamber. The doors opened silently and Leia entered, her steps echoing in the circular hall. There they were, the legendary Jedi Masters seated in their chairs, watching her with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. Mace Windu occupied his position of authority, his face serious and vigilant. Yoda was seated in his special chair, his ancient eyes penetrating through her as if he could read every secret kept. Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, all were there, figures she only knew through historical archives, now alive and present before her. And then her eyes met Obi-Wan Kenobi, still young and with copper-red hair, so different from the old hermit she had briefly known during her rescue. He watched her with genuine interest, his posture relaxed but attentive. And there, standing near the panoramic window overlooking Coruscant, was Anakin Skywalker. Leia's heart almost stopped when her eyes met Anakin's. He was so young, so full of life and light, not yet corrupted by the darkness that would consume him. This was her father before the fall, before becoming Darth Vader, before causing so much pain and suffering. She felt tears threatening to spring up, but blinked quickly and looked away before anyone noticed. Anakin, in turn, frowned slightly, feeling something strange and inexplicable through the Force. There was a connection there, tenuous but present, as if he already knew that woman in some impossible way. The sensation was disconcerting, familiar and strange at the same time. Leia also allowed her eyes to rest briefly on Obi-Wan again, the man who would one day be known as Old Ben, feeling a wave of gratitude for everything he would do for Luke. "Speak, you must," said Yoda from his chair, his ancient eyes studying Leia with penetrating intensity. "Name yours and purpose here, reveal you need. Feel something unusual in the Force, all of us do. Explanation you have." Leia took a step forward and bowed respectfully before the Council. When she rose again, her voice came out clear and controlled, without betraying the storm of emotions inside her. "My name is General Leia Organa, daughter of Bail Organa of Alderaan. I come from the future, from a time where darkness consumed the galaxy and the Jedi Order was extinguished." A heavy silence fell over the chamber after her initial words. Mace Windu leaned forward in his chair, his face showing obvious skepticism. "Time travel is something we consider impossible through the Force," he said in a measured tone. "You ask that we believe something extraordinary without presenting convincing proof. Why should we trust your words?" Leia met his gaze without wavering, her posture firm and unwavering. "I understand your skepticism, Master Windu, and I cannot give many details about how I got here, as this could create even greater problems in the timeline. But what I can say is that Palpatine, the Supreme Chancellor you trust and protect, is actually a Sith Lord called Darth Sidious. He orchestrated this entire war, manipulated the Republic from within for years, and in a few days will execute a plan called Order 66 that will destroy everything you represent and love. At the exact moment Leia finished speaking, something changed drastically. A wave of disturbance crossed through the Force like an invisible storm, making all the Jedi in the room stiffen simultaneously. Leia brought her hand to her chest, feeling as if something fundamental had been ripped from the universe. She knew immediately what had happened, could feel through the impossible distance of time and space. In the future, Palpatine had attacked the Resistance base with devastating force. The temporal connection linking her to her time had been violently severed like a cable being ruptured. Her friends, her family from the present were probably dead or scattered. The Resistance had been crushed in a single brutal blow while she was trapped in the past with no way to return. The weight of this realization threatened to bring her to her knees, but she remained firm through pure willpower. She couldn't allow herself to crumble now, not when she was so close to changing everything and giving meaning to everyone's sacrifice. Yoda said slowly, his eyes closed while probing the Force in search of deeper answers. Great disturbance in balance. Something occurred. Waves through time, I feel. Connected to you, this is General Organa. Path back. Lost you have. Leia nodded faintly, still processing the magnitude of the loss and trying to maintain her composure before the council. Silent tears began to descend down her face, but her voice remained firm when she spoke. Yes, Master Yoda. My time was attacked. There is no return for me anymore. Obi-Wan rose from his chair and approached her with genuine concern etched on his young face. I am deeply sorry for your loss, General. I cannot imagine what you must be feeling now. Anakin also took an involuntary step toward her, his protective instinct activated for reasons he himself didn't fully understand. He wanted to comfort her, hold her hand, say that everything would be fine, but didn't understand where this powerful impulse came from. The connection through the Force between them pulsed stronger now, as if her pain resonated directly in his heart. Leia looked at both of them and felt a pang of bittersweet love. The council began to deliberate among themselves in low voices, the tone of conversation changing drastically after the disturbance everyone had felt. Plo Koon was the first to speak clearly, his deep voice echoing through his mask. If there really is a possibility that the Chancellor is a Sith, we cannot ignore this warning, regardless of how unlikely it seems initially. The disturbance we just felt confirms that something extraordinary is indeed happening. Mundi crossed his arms, his expression thoughtful and worried. But arrest the leader of the Republic based only on the testimony of a stranger who claims to come from the future? The political implications would be catastrophic if we're wrong. The Senate would see us as traitors attempting a coup d'état. Windu rose from his chair, his posture radiating absolute determination and urgency. I suggest we no longer have the luxury of investigating discreetly. If what she says is true, and my instincts through the Force tell me it is, then every minute we wait brings us closer to the disaster she described. We must act now. We must confront Palpatine directly and force him to reveal his true nature. If he really is a Sith Lord, he cannot hide his darkness when pressed by multiple Jedi Masters. Yoda tapped his staff on the floor softly, calling everyone's attention and silencing the parallel discussions that had begun. Decide quickly, we must, the Grand Master said with profound gravity, each word carrying immense weight. Right in heart, I feel that truth she speaks. Deceive about something like this no one could. To the Chancellor's office go we must immediately. Confront him and feel his true intentions through the Force. Do we will. If a Sith he really is, hide his dark nature he cannot when threatened and cornered he is. Reveal himself he will have to. Anakin stepped forward quickly, his face showing mixed anxiety and determination. Master Yoda, please allow me to go with you. I am his friend. I can help capture Palpatine. But Windu shook his head firmly, his expression leaving no room for argument. No, Skywalker. You will stay here in the council chamber. Anakin clenched his fists, clearly dissatisfied with the decision, but did not directly contest the master's authority. Leia saw the frustration on her father's face and felt a pang of painful understanding, knowing exactly what was going through his mind at that crucial moment. Windu, Yoda, and Obi-Wan prepared quickly to leave. Anakin began to pace back and forth across the room as soon as the three masters left, his restlessness growing with each passing second. His hands opened and closed nervously, and Leia could feel the internal conflict growing inside him like a storm about to explode. The minutes dragged like hours inside the council chamber while everyone awaited news. Anakin remained restless, walking in increasingly smaller circles, occasionally murmuring to himself. Leia remained near the window, watching the lights of Coruscant blinking in the darkness of night falling rapidly over the planet city. Finally, Anakin could no longer contain himself. He turned toward the door with absolute determination etched in every movement of his body. "I need to go," he said, more to himself than to anyone else in the room. His voice was loaded with genuine desperation, with deep fear that corroded his soul and clouded his judgment. Leia recognized that tone, that destructive determination that would lead to the fall. Leia moved with surprising speed, placing herself directly between Anakin and the chamber door. Her eyes met his with iron intensity, without fear or hesitation. "You cannot go, Anakin. There is much more at stake here than you can see now through the fog of your fear. If you go there, if you help Palpatine and prevent the Masters from fulfilling their duty, everything will be lost forever. Darkness will win. You will become something you wouldn't even recognize as yourself, a monster who will cause immeasurable suffering to the galaxy." Anakin frowned, confusion and anger mixed in his contorted expression. "What do you know about me? About my choices? How dare you judge what I do to protect those I love? You don't understand?" Anakin continued, his voice rising in volume as frustration overflowed. "I understand more than you imagine," Leia responded, her own voice trembling slightly as she fought to maintain composure. "I understand about loving someone so much that you would do anything to protect them, about carrying the weight of losing precious people, about feeling that the universe is taking everything from you. But I also understand that true love is not about control or power over life and death. It is about trust, about letting go when necessary, about accepting that some things are beyond our reach and learning to live with that pain. The attachment you feel, this desperate fear of losing those you love, is exactly what will lead you to lose absolutely everything you value." Anakin took a threatening step toward her, his height and physical presence trying to intimidate her to get out of the way. "Last chance. Get out of my way now or I'll make you move," he said in a low and dangerous tone. But Leia didn't retreat an inch, maintaining her position with courage that defied all logic. She knew she had no choice, that this was the crucial moment where everything could be won or lost. She extended her hand and her lightsaber activated with the characteristic hum that echoed through the chamber. The bright blue blade illuminated both faces, creating dramatic shadows on the surrounding walls. Anakin stopped abruptly, genuinely surprised by her action. He didn't expect her to actually try to physically confront him. "You really think you can stop me?" he asked, though there was growing hesitation in his voice now. Leia maintained the saber in classic defensive position, knowing perfectly well she didn't have enough skill to defeat her own father in direct combat. "No," she admitted with brutal honesty. "You're infinitely stronger than me, much more trained and connected to the Force in ways I'll never be able to achieve. But I'll try anyway, because I can't let you commit the biggest mistake of your life. Because you mean more to me than you can comprehend, and I'd rather fall trying to save you than watch you walk into darkness." Something in her voice, in the determined way she looked at him despite the tears running down her face, made Anakin hesitate completely. He studied her with renewed and deeper attention, noticing details he hadn't perceived before in the rush of the moment. Her jawline had something familiar. The shape of her eyes was strangely recognizable. Even the way she held the saber had a distant echo of his own style. "You remind me of my mother," he said softly, the anger draining from his face to be replaced by confusion and a strange sense of deep recognition. "The way you speak to me, as if you really care beyond any duty or obligation. as if you knew me more deeply than should be possible for a stranger. Shmi used to look at me exactly like that when I was just a child on Tatooine," Anakin continued, his voice now almost a whisper as old memories surfaced. "With this kind of unconditional love that expects nothing in return, that just wants to see you make the right choices and be the best version of yourself. She would have done exactly what you're doing now, would have placed herself between me and the mistake, even knowing I could hurt her in the process. Who really are you?" Leia felt tears spring more forcefully to her eyes, because she had never known Shmi personally, never had the chance to embrace her grandmother. "Your mother must have been an extraordinary woman beyond any description," Leia said with a choked voice, each word coming out with difficulty through the emotion. "And she loved you more than anything in this entire universe. She sacrificed everything to give you the chance to be free, to live a better life. She would want you to make the right choice now, to trust in the Force and in the people around you who genuinely want your well-being. Please, Anakin, I beg you, take a step back. Trust the masters who trained you. Trust the light within you that still shines strong. Don't let fear transform you into something your mother wouldn't recognize." Anakin stood there for a long moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the internal war reflected in every line of his anguished face. Leia could see the battle happening inside him through the Force, light and darkness fighting for dominion of his soul. His hands trembled slightly at his sides. Finally, after what seemed like a lifetime compressed into seconds, he let his shoulders drop slightly and took a deliberate step back, moving away from the door. "I trust you," he said quietly, his voice carrying as much relief as residual pain. "I don't know why, I don't understand this connection I feel, but I trust." Leia deactivated her saber immediately, allowing a single final tear to descend down her face as she smiled at her father with more love than words could express. She took a step forward and, without thinking about the consequences or the breach of protocol, hugged Anakin firmly. He remained rigid for a moment, surprised, but then returned the embrace, feeling an inexplicable comfort in that contact. For a brief and precious moment, father and daughter connected through time and the Force without even knowing the truth of their bond. When they separated, both had tears in their eyes, and Anakin felt as if an immense weight had been partially lifted from his shoulders. Hours later, when the tension in the room had finally begun to diminish, the three masters returned to the council chamber. There were visible marks of intense battle on their clothes, burns from Sith lightning, tears in their robes, but all were alive and relatively intact. Windu's face showed somber satisfaction mixed with exhaustion. He got straight to the point without unnecessary detours. "Palpatine is finished. He was indeed a powerful Sith Lord called Darth Sidious, exactly as the General warned. He fought with immense power we hadn't seen in centuries, but was defeated when he realized he couldn't escape from three masters simultaneously." The news sent shockwaves through the entire chamber. The confirmation of Leia's words changed everything instantly. Anakin looked at her with deep gratitude and something close to reverence, realizing she had literally saved his soul. Leia felt a mixture of triumph and loss as the reality of her situation solidified. She had managed to change the course of history, save her father from falling, preserve the Jedi Order. But as days turned into weeks after the event, it became clear that she could never return home. That time had been erased or drastically altered, and she was permanently trapped in this new timeline she had created. But then something happened that brought unexpected comfort to her broken heart. Upon seeing Bail Organa for the first time, her adoptive father young and vibrant and full of idealistic energy, she felt a strange sense of peace begin to settle. When she hugged him at their first official meeting, Bail felt the immediate connection, the inexplicable familiarity. Leia told vague stories about a childhood in Alderaan, specific details about the palace gardens that only someone who lived there would know, memories of secret places and family traditions. Bail looked at her with tears in his eyes and welcomed her as if she had always been his daughter, offering her a home and a family. Leia met Padme Amidala, and the two women formed a deep and genuine friendship almost immediately. There was a natural connection between them, as if their souls recognized each other through bonds that transcended time. Leia became Padme's confidant, helping her navigate political challenges while secretly advising about her relationship with Anakin. She was present, months later, when Padme went into labor, holding her hand as the twins came into the world. When the girl was born, tiny and perfect, Padme looked at Leia with gratitude shining in her eyes and timidly suggested her name, saying she had always found it beautiful. Holding the baby who was, in an impossible way, herself, created a moment of profound beauty and cosmic strangeness. Leia gently kissed the child's forehead, whispering promises of protection that crossed the boundaries of time. The boy was named Luke, and Leia smiled knowing that at least some names would remain constant across timelines. The general from the future lived alongside the Skywalker family for precious and golden years, being wise counselor, loyal friend, and tireless secret guardian. She helped Anakin navigate his fears without falling into darkness, taught the twins through coded stories about courage and right choices, and worked discreetly with the Jedi Order to strengthen their defenses against future threats. She never revealed the complete truth about her identity or origin, keeping the secret to protect the stability of the timeline. But through small actions and carefully chosen advice, she helped shape an infinitely brighter future than the one from which she had come. When General Leia Organa passed away peacefully, Luke and Leia Skywalker were 10 years old. Both mourned the loss of that mysterious maternal figure who had always been part of their lives, feeling they had lost someone absolutely irreplaceable. At the funeral ceremony in Alderaan, Jedi from across the galaxy came to honor the woman who had saved the Order. Anakin and Padme were there with the twins. Obi-Wan spoke emotional words, and even Yoda came personally to pay his last respects to the one who had changed the destiny of trillions. The Jedi Order not only survived but flourished in the following decades, learning from the warnings Leia had brought and adapting to better serve the galaxy. When Palpatine tried to return many years later as a specter tied to sinister technology, the Jedi were ready and vigilant. A team of masters, including an Anakin Skywalker who had remained in the light and become the greatest Jedi of all time, completely destroyed the threat before it could gain any real strength. The sacrifice of a general from a future that would never come to exist had saved trillions of lives and allowed light to prosper where before there was only darkness.